Welcome to the Draknek and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, the producer at Draknek and Friends, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head Draknek at Draknek and Friends.
Hey.
Today, we're joined by Ferran and Blaž, who you may know from their work on the just-released LOK Digital. How are y'all doing today?
Hello. Yeah, I don't know. Pretty well. I hope the time this comes out, we're doing even better because it's going to be out.
Yeah. Hello from me as well.
Can the two of you introduce yourself with kind of your names and some of the stuff you've worked on for listeners?
Okay, I'm Blaž, Urban Gracar, and in the game, I'm a Slovenian artist, and in the game circles, I'm probably the most known for LOK, which is the puzzle book from which LOK Digital came. But other than that, I also released another puzzle book called Updeck, and before that, a card game called All is Bomb. But I'm also working in other artistic areas.
I'm Ferran. I'm from Barcelona. I'm a developer. I've worked on jams before. I worked on small indie companies here in Barcelona. And now I started trying to build projects under the name Ice Drop Games. And my handle online is Rain Drinker. You might know me as that. And we published a small puzzle game called Constellations. That's how we met with Blaž, basically. He was playtesting that. Yep. And then I played LOK, and that's how we started working together with Blaž. And yeah, I'm working now on LOK, which is releasing, LOK Digital, and working on some other projects, 1 Billion Spells, which is a very different and not that thinky game that we're working with the people at Ice Drop. And that's it, yeah.
So, Blaž, can you walk the listeners through some of the history of the book?
Yeah, sure. LOK was made when I was not yet engrossed in the whole puzzle community. I was still an outsider at that moment, but I was working on another puzzle book just a little bit earlier. It was called Lineon. I never finished it. So this was sort of something that I enjoyed doing, and I wanted to make a finished product, a finished game as a puzzle book. So yeah, this was sort of the main idea behind LOK, to make something small that I would actually publish. I mean, if we're talking about the core inspiration, I had a discussion with Stephen Lavelle over email, and during this discussion, he sent me a word search set of puzzles which use the Toki Pona language. And this is a constructed new language which uses 128 words, I think. And it was very strange for me because I had to reference a list of Toki Pona words to actually find these words. And at the same time, I was constantly thinking that something crazy will happen in these puzzles because this was Stephen Lavelle. But yeah, in the end, there were normal word search puzzles, but it made me thinking. And this was like the main inspiration, just how to make a word search puzzle game using an invented language, which also has some meta crazy stuff going on. So yeah, this is how it all went.
And what was the context in which you were chatting to Stephen about word searches?
Oh, no, I sent him this previous project, Lineon, and he streamed it and just responded as, look, here is a paper puzzle set that I've made. So this was how he sent it.
Got it. So what got you into the idea of making puzzle books in the first place then?
Well, I got heavily into board game design in 2018. Because I started playing Catan at that point, and it was just, like for many, the first board game that, struck a chord with me. And I got really excited about making my own board games, but nothing felt right. And it always felt sluggish, like there were too many components. And then during the pandemic, I was sitting at home and I just drew a bunch of dots on a paper and I connected them, and something happened inside of me like, whoa, okay, this is very simple, very, very pure, and it can be expanded. So this is how I just started making Lineon. It felt the most natural to work in a puzzle genre. And only after, I settled upon the medium, I started looking into puzzle games. So this was sort of a strange order of things. But yeah, then I got into all the classics, including Draknek. And yeah, so this is how I came into Lineon and then into LOK.
Awesome. And then, Ferran, you said that you met Blaž when he was playtesting for you. How did you start working together?
Yeah, I had to revise that story because I didn't remember completely the order of operations. But when I looked back to it, yeah, he was playing Constellations. I don't know where you found it. Like, we were following each other on Twitter.
Yeah. Twitter.
Yeah, and Twitter chat. And I think, you're just giving some feedback on the Constellations levels. I think we were close to launch at that point. Launch, if you can call it that. And I saw that just by following that you were doing some strange, pen and paper puzzle stuff. I had, basically no relationship to any of that. I got into that through both cracking the cryptic during the pandemic that was doing the constructed Sudoku. I didn't know that was a thing. And then also Elliot Grant's talk about the relationship between paper puzzles and computer puzzles and what can they learn of each other. And I really liked the book, and I just went to Blaž and was like, oh, I made a prototype. I just thought it would be fun to prototype. So but the prototype, I sent it to him, and I was like, oh, I think this would work really well as a digital. I don't know how we're going to do the later mechanics that are really cool, but the starting ones at least work. And we started from there, trying to figure out if this was something fun to do. And yeah, that was kind of how it started. I don't know the specifics or how the follow happened, like the first absolute contact, but I remember.
Do you remember the Puzzle Prime contest that used your Constellation puzzle? This was how I noticed your work at first.
True, because, Puzzle Prime is they were so nice. I think they were the first person to notice Constellations and give very enthusiastic feedback about what I was doing, and it was really validating. So yeah, hello to Puzzle Prime if you're listening to this, I guess. Yeah. And yeah, I guess we met somewhat through his blog in a sense, no?
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing that puzzle, thinking, "Whoa, this is very cool." And then, we followed each other, I think. And the next moment, I saw a post by you with looking for playtesters, and I recognized the puzzle. It was the same, but in the digital environment, and I wrote you about playtesting.
Yeah, that's interesting, no? Because it basically went the other way. Puzzle Prime forced me to do a non-digital adaptation of Constellations.
Oh, I wasn't aware what... I thought that you started first with...
No, it was Puzzle Prime that went oh, I have puzzles on my blog. I think Constellations could work. Oh, I just now remember that. That's funny. But yeah, basically, I never did Constellations on paper. That was not a thing I thought existed. Puzzles on pen and paper, why would you do that? And I was okay, yeah, if you think a Constellations puzzle is going to be nice to solve with a pen. I mean, obviously, Constellations has some... What is it called? Oh no, I'm gonna mess this up. Kakuro or something. There's a Japanese puzzle genre that's close by, but it has the restriction that lines need to be vertical and horizontal. And
this something starting with K, but I think Kakuro has
numbers.
The sounds of numbers.
I should know this, but yeah, people can look it up. I don't know. I'm sorry, but yeah, I knew it had something to do with pen and paper puzzles, but it was designed. Constellations was the main inspiration was phone unlocking system, the thing you do when you unlock your phone, because I thought that was a really interesting mechanical base to input codes or something. But yeah. So so it's interesting because I had to adapt to paper Constellations, and then that's how you found the Constellations puzzle on paper, and then we ended up adapting the other way around with LOK. That's cute.
So what was talking about adapting LOK into the digital puzzle format, sort of, Ferran, do you remember if there were any initial challenges with that prototype that you made that you ran into, like getting any of the logic to work? Because it is a kind of bespoke type of logic that LOK uses.
Yeah, there's some weird trickery, especially like in later chapters, without wanting to spoil too much. I think when I started doing the prototype and I suggested the adaptation, I had the feeling that we were gonna have to drop a lot of the later mechanics, and that made me feel kind of like maybe I'm not doing the best service to this game. Like until we really elbows deep into it, we didn't go, oh no, we can actually do everything, and there's cool solutions to everything. Even something as obvious that feels right now, that when you spell a LOK word, a LOK creature appears, and then you click a tile and it splashes into it. That's not built into the book at all. Like that's not a thing that the book even implies. So for a while we didn't have that. And when we did that and Blaž did the animations, it clicked really well. Like that's when, okay, this is working because we are really using the digital medium to add like juice to this more unresponsive dynamic that is usually with the book, where everything happens in the head of the player, which I think is the coolest part of the book. And at the beginning I was really scared of losing that and messing that up and just making a worse version. But I think we managed to compensate what we cannot do, because video games are fundamentally a feedback medium. We went, instead of just adding the necessary feedback, we went beyond and tried to make it like really make sense, to the point of people that play the game first cannot really sometimes understand how this would be played as a puzzle book, which is really funny. But yeah, the tech behind it, I don't think it's anything crazy, especially at the beginning. There's some strange logic, but nothing that's nuclear. Like it was an interesting challenge. Like the main reason I did it, when I did the prototype, I didn't expect it would go obviously to this, but even to like Blaž being into it. But I was like, oh, this seems like an interesting problem. And that's the reason I got into game programming instead of doing websites. So I was drawn to it, I guess.
And what exactly was it with the interesting puzzle was that you thought was there?
Yeah, I think that comes from the thing I was mentioning with like Elliot and then cracking the cryptic. Like I was so used, when I thought Sudoku for a long time, I thought about like a Sudoku book, procedurally generated puzzles, slop in a sense, like if you accept that term, no? And seeing that there were people like doing these puzzles that were really designed, that had like this solve path, that built this kind of conversation between the designer and the solver, was really interesting to me. And obviously I knew that there were Sudoku puzzles that were designed by that point. Like I learned that through cracking the cryptic. But I feel like Blaž's work was my first contact with something that was a full book, that is a logical conversation from start to end, that it builds upon itself and it's nothing feels out of place, and it just establishes this system that's completely new, like a language. It's what it is, like a logical language. And I was like, oh, this is something special. Through Blaž, I learned that other people were doing similar stuff. Like it was not extremely like fundamentally innovative, but to me, just that concept, not specifically LOK, but the idea of having a puzzle book in that way was something new. And I really liked it. Felt really video gamey, really interesting for the games that I'd done before. My main problem with Constellations, which we were happy with, but it was a very trial and error game. It didn't allow for a lot of logic because moves were independent to one another. And this was the opposite of that. Like there was clearly like a steps to a solve, like a logic to it, like a conversation of sorts. And I really like that. So those are kind of the things that called to me, I guess. And I thought it was great. So I want to know how this goes. And at that point, the book wasn't even released, so I'm credited as a playtester. Like a part of it was wanting to give back, because like Blaž was playtesting Constellations. So I was like, oh, you're doing this thing and I like it, so do you want me to playtest it too? And that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
Are you even yet?
I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, yeah. I don't know. I've had a lot of working relationships that are very like give and take and just kind of work with the barter system, and I'm really happy about it. So I don't know. I feel really even. Like I don't feel owed anything at all, obviously, and I'm really happy with what we've managed to do. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. One thing that I'm curious about going from the prototype into production of the full game. So, Ferran, you show it to Blaž, together you agree, let's do this. How much of the original prototype, like code, work, etc., is still in this final version?
too much, probably.
Okay, you did build it off the prototype. It wasn't just...
I think so. I might have cleaned it up at some point very early, but I've not. Like the game would probably be nicer to work on now if at some point during development I took everything I learned about the weirdness of the later mechanics of LOK, and I was like, okay, let me build a more robust system to handle this. I don't think it's bad in any way. Like it's handleable, especially for like basically only one programmer poking the code. But yeah, I think there's like almost a continuous line. I'm not sure. I think that maybe I don't know if the initial prototype was Godot. I'm a big Godot fan most of the time, and this is Unity. And it's a project that probably if I started it now, maybe I would do Unity, but I think there were some problems with Mac compatibility, and Blaž is a Mac user, so that was a bit of a barrier. So I do think that the first prototype that I sent was Unity, but I cannot recall completely. Maybe it ran on web, and if it ran on web, it was probably Godot. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think early on, maybe at some point I did like a blank slate and started properly, but not anytime recently. Like it's been a continuous growing project, which it's probably a project that if you start from clean, it would take a lot less time once you have the complicated bits figured out. It's a project that's very restartable, but we didn't, I guess.
Makes sense. And then, Alan, this question is surprise for you. How did you find LOK and LOK Digital?
Good question. I remember I saw the PDF of LOK before it was fully released, probably on the Thinky Puzzle Games Discord. And I remember playing it like a little bit. I didn't play and like get to all the later puzzles, but like I played it enough to get a sense of like, oh wow, this is interesting. And I didn't get in touch with any feedback, but like I played it a bit then and I was aware of it. And then I didn't play it when the full release came out. I heard people talking about it and having a good time. But yeah, the next time it would have really been on my radar was seeing Ferran working on LOK Digital. I don't remember exactly the timeline in which I became aware of LOK Digital, but the time I was set down with like, oh wow, this is really amazing. Was you were doing a playtesting session, Ferran? And yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, you're playtesting this. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to play it and give feedback. And I sat down and was like, oh, wow, this is like really juicy. This is really solid. It's like very satisfying to play in a way that I hadn't really got from the videos of it. And so, yeah, that playtest was when I really took notice and went like, oh, this is really strong.
And that would have been about when you shared it with me.
Yeah, possibly. I do not remember.
Yeah, I think that playtest was like crazy for me at that point because it was a interesting opportunity, and suddenly like you and Joe from the Thinky Games and from the YouTube channel, which I must be the person who's watched the most hours of that YouTube channel, and like I think Elliot was in that playtest. No, maybe not on that playtest. He tried it later on. And it was like, oh, this quote unquote, like, I was just at the time, like getting into the networking in the puzzle. Like I was meeting a lot of people who seemed really far away, very like a few months before or even a few weeks before. And it was really daunting to, I'm going to organize like, I guess a playtest with these folks. And it was really nice to see that the feedback was good, was really validating. I don't know what the timeline of that is, like at what point we were then, if the shut up and sit down thing had already happened or not yet, or how long was until the book was released. I should be specific about that. Yeah, I think the big semi-break we got with Blaž, even before Draknek, was when we got reviewed. I mean, LOK book was reviewed by Tom Brewster from Shut Up and Sit Down, and you and him, Blaž, exchanged some emails, and you mentioned the game, so he slightly mentioned the game too in the video, and that was the first influx of wish lists. And yeah, everything went super quickly then. That happened, then I had that playtest. Not long after, like, you, Alan, approached me with would you be interested in that? And I was like, yes, obviously. Like, I don't see how this is not the best thing that can happen to this project, basically. So
yeah, I mean, I think there was, in my memory, there's a bit of a gap between playing that build for the playtest and reaching out for, hey, would you be interested in Draknek publishing this?
Yeah, it was not immediate. Like, it was not.
Yeah, it's probably like 6 months apart.
Ooh, that much, really? Okay, maybe, yeah.
I mean, if Alan became aware primarily from the playtest, then I found out through Alan. I had known about the game for at least like 4 or 5 months before we decided to chat about publishing.
Okay. I mean, yeah, time is a weird soup. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we reached out, I think, around November 2023 to say, hey, Draknek's looking to do another publishing project. We think this game is really promising. Are you interested? And yeah, I mean, the conversation happened pretty quickly. Well,
it would have gone a little quicker if I think Ferran specifically thought we were pranking.
What?
I distinctly remember getting on a call and asking if we were actually being serious.
I mean, just you guys to take that as like a form of praise, probably. Like, I was not actually asking if you were being serious. It was like
it would be a mean prank.
I mean, I remember that the first time we talked with Blaž about it, Blaž's reaction was like, "Oh, they must be like publishing like tons of stuff."
Yeah.
I remember that conversation with Blaž. Yeah.
That was your follow-up question, was like at the end of the call, the final question was, are we like one in a lineup of like 30 games you're signing?
No, not 30. But yeah, I thought, because I truly didn't think that LOK Digital, I mean, I'm happy that it is worthy of Draknek, but at that point I thought that you are expanding, that you will have a bunch of titles in 2024. Yeah. It was very surprising, the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a recognizable name. Like, micro celebrity is still a celebrity. Like, it's a brand name, and we're just bumbling fools that were trying to do something. So, as much as like it's a,
isn't that everyone in the industry though?
Yeah. That's the thing I learned the most, and that's been the main formative experience in my still short career in video games. Like, if somebody tries to pretend that they know what they're doing, run, and everyone else that's worth your time is gonna tell you like, you're a bumbling fool, but I am too. And that's been really nice, because it has given me a lot of freedom to like, leave jobs and try to do risky, probably things that didn't look very financially responsible, like going into LOK development. And it's somewhat working out, so I'm glad. But yeah, the first shock was like, even though it's just a bunch of people, and I was already getting used to going into the Thinky Discord and seeing like Hempuli there, and YouTubers I watch there, and Lucas Pope or whatever. It was like, oh my god, like these people are just walking around like they're normal. Which is like, I guess, just parasocial nonsense. But yeah, it felt special because it felt like being recognized by someone you recognize, and that's really nice. And we couldn't believe it for a second.
And so we signed you. We're very excited about that. And then we tried to get to work in making the game and ship it this year. And listeners will know by now, as we say sometimes in America, a real buzzer beater. We really got in under the wire of getting in middle of December, but we hit this year.
Yeah. The last section of development stretched a little bit. I feel like the game has been finished for 5 months or something now.
It's been content complete, yeah.
Yeah, it was probably like the initial target was very doable. I got slightly burnt out of the post-content complete section and frustrated with production things that I was not used to, but we got through. So, and listeners will know now if something strange happened if the game is not out. It should be. So,
if this game is not out yet, I don't think this episode will come out.
Okay.
I'm just gonna put that out there. If you're listening to this, go get the game right now on Steam or itch, please.
Yeah.
It's real good.
It's really, really
Why are you
good.
listening to this if you haven't got the game already?
Unless you're really talented and can go play this game while listening to this podcast.
Yeah, 2 screens. People have 2 screens.
No, so I mean, our marketing campaign for this really started with Cerebral Puzzle Showcase into PC Gaming Show.
Yeah, I think we announced it a little before Cerebral Puzzle Showcase. Like, we announced we were publishing it. Then we had the demo in Cerebral Puzzle Showcase. Then we had the demo and the daily puzzles for PC Gaming Show.
Love me some daily puzzles.
That was a really great few months of like a lot of excitement for the game in that period.
Yeah. I mean, I think the moment that it was like, okay, this is going beyond is when I got to watch like big Spanish YouTuber with 2 million followers on Twitch reacting to the silly trailer of a weird game and all his chat going like, what the hell is this thing? And it was like, oh, I made it. Like, I would never expected to have, in this case, it's Alex El Capo. It's a Spanish YouTuber that I watch for like from the teens, basically. And it was really funny showing my friends, oh, look, this guy that you know about is just about to react to something I made. And I was in a gathering with friends at that point, so we were watching with the phone. It was really nice. And that was the first, like, the Summer Game Fest. I still don't understand what kind of threads you weave, you guys at Draknek, to get those kind of things. But it was a really cool place to be and showcase the game, and it got really good buzz.
And what was your reaction to people playing the daily puzzles and competing on the leaderboards?
Is this a poison question for me because I didn't have it all in me that was going to be a thing?
No, it was just genuinely like,
yeah.
What was it like?
It's so weird to see someone like actually, like, when I was seeing people that were playing every day, like, even though we only did a small run, like, it became part of people's routine. That's a wild thing to think about. I don't know how, like, if I feel like I'm talking too much now. But yeah, it was just like, I didn't expect people. I was happy with LOK being like the book, something that has a beginning and an end, and it, like, as I said before, like a conversation. And the daily puzzles feel like a little bit of just content, but it was nice to design the generation, and people were enjoying it a lot. Like, the work that was kind of weird with doing the leaderboards and stuff, because those things are always tricky. Very clearly was worth it, and I hope is it now more with the game out. We're gonna have, like, the scroll bar is gonna be so small. But yeah, I don't know. I know we had conversations with Blaž about the dailies when they were first suggested, we were on the fence.
Sorry.
Blaž, what's your feelings about how it turned out?
Yeah, sorry for being a bit silent. Yeah, I agree with Ferran completely. But yeah, maybe an interesting thing is that when we first discussed generated puzzles with Ferran even before you approached. As a publisher, I remember that I was very against it, and that we both agreed that, we want people to play the real deal, not the generated stuff. But throughout the cooperation with you guys, I absolutely learned a few things about good design. Daily puzzles is one thing, but the other thing is hints. I remember we had a lot of discussions about including hints or not, but now that we had them for at least in 9 months or something, I'm really happy that they are included, and we got a lot of good feedback about them.
Yeah, like a part of me wanted, because since my coming into this project was specifically about, like all I talked about, Sudoku books, going into Sudoku designer things, adding procedural stuff into LOK felt a little bit like going in the opposite direction. So I had an initial like icky reaction to it, but people like it. It's fun. Like the campaign is still there as a clean experience, completely separate from it. So it's good, and that's what matters. But yeah, it was more of a metaphysical thing for me, and I imagine also for Blaž of are we just gonna turn this into hashtag content of sorts?
Makes sense. Alan, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I want to go back chronologically a bit, like way back to when you started collaborating. Blaž, what was your initial reaction to seeing that first prototype that Ferran sent you?
Well, it was amazing. I mean, something that I've just put together in Photoshop was suddenly moving, and things could be clicked. So yeah, it was a very positive reaction. I really liked it. I was maybe a bit, talking to Ferran, slow down, let me first finish the book, which I still think was a smart decision, because I've had experience before with Lineon. A very talented Polish developer contacted me and said that he wanted to do something like an app, a companion app for Lineon puzzles, and I was, of course, up for it. And I don't want to say that it killed the project, but it was just another thing that was scope creep at that moment for Lineon. So when Ferran approached me, I said to him, "This is great, I love it, but let me first finish the book and then let's talk." And this is what we did. And then it started snowballing quite quickly, I think. I released the book in July 2022. And so we had the first demo up, I think, in March. And we weren't rushing. But yeah, a lot of work was done in those first few months. So yeah.
Nice. And then something else, I think we've kind of touched on it, but I think we could go deeper, is talking about the differences from the physical format of a book, where like it's just a static object in front of you and you have to figure out the rules of the game yourself. You have to figure out, have you solved the puzzle yourself, to a video game that can have much more interactive feedback about what you're doing and whether it's the right thing and how things work. I'd love to chat more about like your feelings about those and like how it felt to adapt the game from one format to another.
When Ferran said that he was afraid to, remove the best part of LOK, which would be the rule discovery from the digital game, I was a little bit scared about it too, but I think that this is, two sides of the same coin. I think that someone could potentially pick up the LOK book and solve it, and pick up LOK Digital and solve it, and it would have two different experiences, and both of them would be fulfilling. Because, there is something about having a physical object and going to the beach, or, just doing it while you eat breakfast. And another thing, when you sit down and you want to have a brainy experience on the computer. And I mean, it's interesting also, the rule discovery thing didn't translate as well to the LOK Digital game. But at the same time, I think that if me and Ferran would start working on a completely new game and we would decide to go for rule discovery, we would do it so much better, because the translation had to happen, because, LOK was already existing. But if you look at a game like Understand or even The Witness, which was a great influence for LOK, it's much more immediate and better working in the digital environment. So yeah, there were some small stuff that didn't translate as well, but I think that now that we have the game done, I'm really, really proud of it. I'm really glad what Ferran did with it. And yeah, I'm just happy that it exists. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there was an early growing pains at the beginning for sure, both in making sure that I really like this, but am I am I taking a deer in the forest and hanging it in my wall, kind of sort of thing, where you're removing the magic just to put it in a box. And yeah, I think it was a work of I need to make sure to give enough care and love to the digitalness of it, so what we lose in one side we gain on the other. And it's really hard still to players. There's a thing you can do with the game that you cannot do with the book. With the game, you can just click stuff randomly until the puzzles are solved. And I've seen people do that, and it cannot be not a great experience if someone doesn't engage with the game in the right mindset. The book literally does not allow you to do that, because you can only pass the page. The only thing you can do is throw it out of the window. it demands a different type of mindset that the game kind of cannot, for better or worse. And yeah, as Blaž said, at the beginning we had some doubts. I was worried about the later mechanics. Everything seemed like it could be just a slightly worse version of a great thing, so maybe a good thing. But I think we went through, and when we started more working together and we're okay, now we can do things in the game that are not in the book. It's not supposed to be just an adaptation. It has extra content. There are puzzles that are too hard for the book, because on the book, Blaž was really smart and added the transparent sheet, so you could have a semblance of an undo, but it's not really an undo. But on the game, you have undo, so you can tackle puzzles that are much harder, and it can be really satisfying. So there's stuff like that we noticed that the game could do that the paper couldn't, and then it started feeling more worth it to do the translation, the adaptation.
Yeah, I opened up my archive of puzzles that didn't make it into LOK, and just there were good puzzles, but yeah, too convoluted. So yeah, it was a great place to just put them into LOK Digital, where it worked great.
On that note, I'm curious if you have any wisdom that you've accumulated about your sense of what makes a good puzzle for LOK.
For LOK, yeah, it's hard to put your finger on it, but yeah, sure. I've gotten better with it. And it surprised me that when I started making new puzzles for LOK Digital, that I still had new ideas. Of course, new mechanics do add a lot of possibilities, but still, it's just so much that you can say inside of a system. So I'm really glad how it all worked out. But wisdom about LOK puzzles specifically, because I think that this could be applied to a lot of things. And I'm not sure if it's really confined to just one puzzle in particular, but I think I learned more about how to make a system of puzzles, how they are connected, how they teach going from one to the other, and so on.
Yeah, I think that for puzzle games, and it's the approach that I used on my jam games, what I used to do on jam games is, once I have thought of a system, do the hardest puzzle I can come up with that has a really cool, that showcases everything, put that at the end, and the rest of the game is a tutorial. And I think that LOK has that quality where the whole book is a tutorial. There are some puzzles which are kind of now you know everything, solve this, but there are 4 or 5 of those almost. No, maybe with the star puzzles in the game is a bit more, but on the book, the book feels like a tutorial. And I think that's why a lot of people I've play tested the game with that are not puzzle game players become puzzle monsters once they are playing LOK, because it just puts like another morsel of food in your face that's just part of a huge tutorial and keeps you hooked. And I almost feel disparaged at points when some friends describe the game as addictive. I was like, I don't know if you want this to be described in those terms, but it has that quality of it flows nicely into itself because it is a tutorial, basically. It's not a game.
I mean, I think there's a sort of middle ground between it's a tutorial versus it is always just teaching you / onboarding you to just one more idea, but that one more idea is just like a very clever step forward. It's like that's like part of rule discovery in its nature as like a puzzle genre.
Yeah. What I mean is like every level has a message. Like I could tell Blaž like, oh, we need to fix the level where you learn X, and he knows which level it is. Because every level has like, you could describe it with a sentence. There's no, as I said previously, like there's almost no hashtag content. There's at the end, there can be a level which is just like okay, now perform, but those are quite rare. And I think that's what gives it this essence of, the rule discovery pushing you forward without it being obtuse, because a lot of rule discovery games can be like lean so hard into it that it's just going through possibilities or to bake. Like I think the key of LOK is like it puts a really small level in front of you, and it has this beautiful puzzle flow of you look at something, and with what you know so far, it looks obviously impossible. And there's something that makes a lot of sense that makes it not impossible. And you keep hitting that note over and over. And I think this is what got me interested in the book, and hopefully we did more of that with the new mechanics in the game.
Makes sense. As we sort of come to the end of discussing the journey that we went through on this game, what was your reaction to finding out that we were going to be in Day of the Devs? And then what was your follow-up reaction to realizing we're going to shadow drop into Day of the Devs?
I guess I need to reply that one because it was Blaž's birthday and he missed that.
Yeah. I mean, I learned about it when we were already settled down in Italy somewhere.
Yes, that's true. For everyone's reference, I was super excited to get on a call and surprise them, and Blaž wasn't there because it was his birthday.
I mean, not just because of the birthday. I was on vacation. We went to Italy.
Yeah.
It was Halloween, and Syrenne was enjoying way too much, giving this is gonna be huge kind of thing, and like dropping the viewership numbers, and me going like, are you again? Not like the first contact. Like, are you pranking me again? Is this another prank? Just like last time, has it all been fake? Do I not exist? But yeah, I don't know. It's really exciting. It's the us of now. When you're listening to this, know how it has gone somewhat, I guess. But I'm still somewhat in the tunnel of this is the leading to the big drop where everything is decided. I don't know. I know it's not really like that, but it feels like that sometimes. And I had to like talk to friends to help me with like recording stuff, which is something like I wanted to be a programmer, so I didn't have to like show my face to people. And now like a lot of people will see me speaking about this weird game, and it's been a bit wild, but yeah. And then I had the pleasure of the same thing that Syrenne did to me. I did it to Blaž on chat a little bit later of like, yeah, they just gave me some news and some numbers and a release date. Grab onto your seat, and that was fun.
Although, if I can be honest, I think that I first saw Syrenne posting it into our Discord with something like, this is happening on this date. It wasn't really like deal with it, but it felt a bit like a bomb going off in my mobile.
Yeah, but she was intentionally vague a little bit with the posts even.
Yeah, so I tried to give Ferran something to reveal it all to you. Yes.
Yeah. Ferran then wrote me, and of course we had the discussion. It was a similar thing with me. I started calling people from Italy if they could lend me their camera and so on. So pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, wacky days ahead. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like we didn't mention, I think that's like the fun fact. I don't know if it got into the Day of the Devs thing, but we still have to meet at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, I've met Alan now. I have not met Syrenne because of there's an ocean.
Yeah, there's a whole ocean between us. Yeah. I haven't physically met Alan, and I've been working with him for 4.5 years.
I did not know that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so a cheers to remote work with people you have not met in person. It's been working great for us so far. But that's interesting. You could connect the dots in a map of the 4 people who are in this podcast thingy right now, and it's like a big polygon. It's huge. There's a lot of distance between the 4 of us.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm the one that spreads it out across the ocean, though. It's always fun trying to communicate times of day to Ferran and Blaž, because I'm like, it's like when this call started, minus 11 minutes, or like it's like 2 hours after our normal call. It's a whole...
Yeah, time zones are so strange. Like, I still get so confused about them. I had to deal with those for the dailies. That was a fun part of development.
Oh, yeah, no, that's all the fun things that you don't think about when you're like, sure, let's figure out what procedurally generated content is. And then it's like, all right, do they refresh at the same time for everyone? Yes. All right, let's figure that out. But no. Is there anything else that we wanted to touch on other than please go get the game on Steam's and/or itch? And also it's coming to mobile early next year. We could say that now?
Yeah, it will.
I think that's it.
By the time this comes out, if all of our plans have worked, you should also know the release date on mobile.
Yeah.
Which is a number.
Which is?
A date.
Yeah.
It's January 23rd. It's definitely going to be January 23rd. No need to edit this.
Yeah, Melanie, definitely keep this whole thing in, and definitely don't ask me to do a necro record later.
I don't know if this is in jest or not. This is getting too meta for me.
I mean, we could do a version of this where we say the date, and we could do a version of this where we don't say the date, and we can just choose which version to publish.
Or we could publish this one. That's a funny option.
Yeah, this is more fun. I will leave this entirely up to Melanie's discretion. Our marketing campaign is now entirely up to the podcast editor to see if we got it right or not. All right. What are the first things that y'all are going to do once you're completely done working on LOK Digital?
Oh, completely done? You mean like after mobile, after everything?
After mobile.
Yeah, I have the team at Ice Games, which was not a part of LOK Digital. This was my personal excursion with Blaž, working on 1 billion spells. We need to figure out what we're doing with that. We're planning to release a demo. Maybe this is an exclusive for the podcast. Not really. But yeah, that's a project. And then we have talked a lot with Blaž about what's the next step for each of us. He has a great puzzle game coming that I have on my living room, and I should playtest properly for him, which is called Hurt, and it's really cool. But yeah, we have talked about what could we do in the future, either supporting each other in our separate projects or doing something together. Or is LOK done here? Who knows? It's a complicated thing to expand, probably. But yeah, you tell me, Blaž. Yes, I expressed my interest in bringing you towards the world of video games. I don't want to rob you from the world of pen and paper. But if we have any ideas, we should discuss them for the future.
Absolutely. Like I told you in our chats, I am 100% up for it. I would love to do more games with you. And yeah, but I think that I will always jump in between, like working with you, Ferran, for a video game and working on something physical for myself. I think that I do need to have this balance.
Yeah.
I doubt that I'll become a full-fledged video game developer, but yeah.
Smart. I mean, I've gotten a lot of the fascination for like the physical from your work. Like, I understand the coolness of doing something that you can like hold in your hands. That's something I'm going to have in the back of my mind now for maybe I want to do something like that. We'll see. But it's a very different thing. And I'm a programmer at heart, so it's complicated. But yeah, we're definitely going to make an action platformer very stressful, not puzzly at all. That's the plan.
That's the plan.
And then, obviously, Draknek will suddenly be interested in non-puzzle games.
Okay, don't try to lead us on. Don't try to troll us.
Okay, that was a troll.
Okay, deal.
But an action platformer thing with hidden meta secrets. Now that could be a Draknek game.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, whatever we make, like if it's something that me and Blaž made, you're gonna get the pitch. Like it's 1000% sure. Even if it's very hard that whatever next project I do that is not 1 billion spells, because that's a very different game, is probably going to be puzzle adjacent, and you're going to be the first people to see it, most likely. So yeah, you won't get, I mean, I was going to say you won't get tired of me, but I meant the opposite thing. Yeah. You won't get rid of me. Exactly. That's the concept. Any of you, that applies to everyone.
Awesome. So, where can people find you?
You can find me online as Raindrinker on now Blue Sky. I'm very happy how much it's picking up, honestly. It's a new hope. I'm Raindrinker anywhere, website, socials, etc. The studio is called Ice Drop Games, also have a website, and I'm trying to make socials for it, trying to be a responsible brand owner of sorts. And yeah, DMs are always open, happy to chat about games, puzzle games, other games, and yeah.
You can also find me on socials. I'm using my full name everywhere, which is Blaž Urban Gracar. That Ž is Z with, I don't know how to say, apostrophe, something like that above it. And yeah, I'm also on Blue Sky, and I also have my website, which is blazgracar.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, both of you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Huge pleasure, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A pleasure.
And thank you for listening to the Draknek and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoise.bandcamp.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis, and our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.